everybody, and welcome to this 29th episode of the Closures Podcast. I am your host, as always, Mark Alvarado. And I got no guest today. It's just me. Things have been a little crazy, and a lot of changes have been happening with the podcast. So it kind of, I'm not going to say this week got overlooked, but, you know, I got to give myself a little bit of a break every once in a while from trying to get guests on. You know, it can become a lot, especially when you have school, and you got other projects going on, and you know, life happens. Life happens, and it's just me. So I hope that's okay with everybody. But before I get into the topics that I'm gonna discuss, please follow us on Instagram at The Closures Podcast, on Facebook at Closures Podcast, and we also have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on there. The channel is The Closures Podcast. And yeah, so I asked Instagram for some topics, you know, and I don't know what I was fucking expecting, but I got two okay suggestions, and then I got like two just fucking troll answers. Very similar though. Very similar. I got the troll answers to my question of give me some topics to discuss were penises and dildos. Those are the two separate ones. Two totally separate people sent me the same thing. It's pretty funny. But yeah, we're not going to talk about those things today. One of the things that I was asked to talk about was actually something that kind of when I read the topic, I was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. Like, I can ramble on about that for hours, but I will save you all that. I will not be rambling on for hours today. Maybe at the most 1 hour, but I don't even know if I have that in me to talk that long. But the topic is soul searching. And, you know, there's a lot of ways one can do that. There's a lot of things that can start the process of soul searching. There's a lot of reasons why somebody would want to be doing that, would want to soul search. But what is soul searching? To start the discussion, well, the way I view it is soul searching is just deep self-reflection. Unbiased, totally objective. And it's very hard for people to do that, you know, to look at themselves in a very objective light, because we are very subjective creatures. We have our own specific opinions and biases and the way we view ourselves, you know, like a lot of people have very negative views of themselves, and I'm not excluding myself from that group. A lot of people who are beautiful people, a lot of people who are very healthy, you know, they look in the mirror and they view themselves as ugly, or view themselves as overweight or fat, or, you know, and vice versa, you know. And it's weird to think about how there's a lot of different types of mentalities when it comes to soul searching. Those perceptions we have of ourselves really is the basis for that type of search that you're going to do, that type of self-reflection. And it's hard for people to get away from those perceptions. It takes maturity to get over those perceptions and to look at yourself from a totally nuanced, I don't even know if nuance is the right word, just objective angle. But to give some people, you know, out there a little bit of a context, I've had to do a lot of soul searching over the past couple of years. A lot of things have happened in my life. You know, friendships, relationships, ending, people passing away, animals passing away, seeing how certain situations have arisen because of my actions, and how other situations have arisen because I did not act. I'm not going to go into specifics, of course, but there's just been a lot. And soul searching is something I've had to do pretty frequently to get to the point where I'm at. If it wasn't for soul searching, like in particular, I don't believe the podcast would be here, or my music. But it's very important to self-reflect. And even if it's not to the deepest level, as like soul searching as a term kind of points you to do, like it doesn't have to be that deep. But after you interact with somebody and you leave the interaction with that feeling of like, did I just make myself look like an idiot? That's a good time to self-reflect, in my opinion. Just because there's a lot of people who will look down upon themselves in those situations, when in fact you sounded fine, when in fact you carried yourself fine. And that's something I've definitely had to learn recently. Being on this podcast, doing this, it's made me feel like I've been under a microscope. I've interviewed people on here, and I tell myself afterwards, like, holy shit, that was the worst fucking interview I've ever done in my life. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why does anybody listen to me? I'm so bad, But then a couple months later, I listened to that same interview, and I sound fine. I don't sound bad. It's all just in my mind, I feel like that ties into soul searching to a degree. But there are a lot of ways that one can get into that type of self-reflection, and it's after very hard and transformative experiences. I know that people go through those types of experiences generally between the ages of 15 and 20. Just because, you change from being a kid to an adult, and that's a very traumatic experience. Traumatic, for lack of a better term. Transformative, yes, but for a lot of people, it's rough. It's really fucking rough. Like for me, when I left high school, I graduated and I went to San Francisco State right after high school. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but not exclusively. That was a huge moment for me. I changed so much as a person in that time. I lived on my own in a city that I've never been in before. Not to that extent. My parents were 100 miles away. I had no friends. I had barely any money. And I had no time. I had really nothing. And it was so difficult. I remember I would come home often. I lived in a garage at the time. And I would come home often and just be so depressed and down. Because I felt like I made the wrong decision to move that way. Like I felt like I didn't know what I was doing there. I had no purpose there. The reason why I moved there is because I thought, okay, there's a lot of money in that area. I have to, I would have to get an opportunity somewhere, but all those people, they make money, mainly through science, engineering, stuff like that, coding, things of that nature. I had nothing. I didn't know anything about that stuff, so it made it pretty difficult to find any sort of opportunity in that area. And I didn't find anything, and so I just worked at the UPS store out on 4th and King, out by now Oracle Park. At the time was AT&T Park, and yeah, it was just, it triggered me to look within, because at that point I realized, like I lied to myself. I told so many people in high school that I was going to go to San Francisco and I was going to conquer it. I was going to do it. And it took a lot for me to really sit myself down and just think and be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I'm not happy. Why am I here? Am I here just to please everybody else? Just and all the people that I'm trying to prove myself to, they don't even care. It took a lot for me to realize that I had told people that I was going to San Francisco about a year and a half in advance. My desire to leave faded very quickly, but I stuck with it because I didn't want to seem like a wishy-washy person that didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I wanted to look like I had my shit together, and I didn't. And that, at the time, did more harm than good for me. Now I look back, and it was actually, I kind of thank myself for going through all that, because if it wasn't for that San Francisco experience, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the foresight to see, certain instances. For a short time, I was actually considering moving to Arizona about a year and a half ago. For the very same for almost the same reason, I wanted to run away from certain things here in Sacramento, and one of my friends was moving out to Arizona, and he kind of hinted at the idea of me going with him, and I almost jumped at the opportunity. I almost also went to Fullerton. I also almost went to Sonoma State, but I decided to stay, and I'm pretty glad I decided to stay, because I would have been doing the exact same thing that I did by going to San Francisco. I'd be trying to prove myself to people that wouldn't have given a shit, and it would have just made my life harder overall. I would not have been in that good of a situation. So with that being said, that was my first instance of like soul searching, and I realized a lot about myself. I realized that, I actually really enjoyed being in a more suburban environment. I like it better. I know there's a ton of people out there that just hate it, and I understand. I'm not saying it's bad to like different settings. I know there's some people that like to be in a more like mountainous or rural setting. Some people really like the city. I get it, but I've done the city, and now I know it's not really for me. I can't really live in it. It's very, very difficult. You feel like you have no space. You have to plan everything in advance to fit around the bus scheduling, the muni scheduling, subway scheduling. Like, you have to leave hours in advance to get there on time. You're at the will of everybody else. At least when you're in your car, you can at least, determine how fast you're going, how slow you're going, which way you're going to go. Everything's up to you. If you're going to be late, everything really is up to you. If you live in San Francisco and you leave for your job 2 hours in advance, and if one of the lines is down because of some fucking maintenance shit, you're done. And you're going to be late. And that's it. And there's nothing that you can do about it. So, I don't know. There was a lot of things I realized about that. Another thing is how important friends are. When I was in San Francisco, and this is one of the stories that I wish I could just go back in time and slap myself across the face for this, but I was at my orientation for SF State. And I was talking to this guy in this lunch line. I was getting a sandwich, And we were standing in line. He was talking to me. He told me he was from SoCal. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. Telling me how excited he was to be in San Francisco, meet new people. And he was like asking me for like my number. He wanted to hang out with me, you know. Really nice guy. He wasn't creepy at all, like super nice. And I remember just kind of like looking at him annoyed that he was even trying to like become my friend. And I was just like, look, dude, I'm here for school. I'm not here to fucking make friends. And he was just like, oh, okay. All right. And he just kind of walked away. And at the time I was, you know, like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm not here to fucking party or do any stupid shit. Like, I'm here to go to school and just do my shit, you know. And I realized, you know, probably like 4 months in to being an SF, how stupid and shitty that was of me. To treat that person that way, and also to limit myself. Why? Like, why was I limiting myself to not have friends? You know? And the rest of my time in San Francisco, I spent, you know, really trying to make friends. And then I always thought back at that instance when I said that to that guy. And then in my second semester at SF State, I actually had a class with that guy who wanted to be my friend. And I remember at the last day of the class, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, but you came up to me and you were like, you asked me for my number and I was super rude to you. I'm really sorry. That's been bugging me ever since, and I shouldn't have treated you that way. That's really unfair. And he just looked at me. He's like, hey, man, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's moments like that really form you, you know, when you realize that you did something wrong and you apologize for it sincerely and the person forgives you. Those are lessons that you will never forget, because you know, like, what it feels to make that mistake. So you're not going to do it again. There are some lessons that have to be relearned constantly, because they're just, I don't know. Some people just make the same type of mistakes because it's just natural for them, I guess. I don't know the psychology. I'm not a psychology major by any means. I don't know shit about that, but no, that just changed a lot for me. I mean, there's a lot of experiences where I've had to do a lot of soul searching. You know, I'm going through that right now. I mean, with this podcast, you know, it's been really, really stressful to do it for as long as I have, even though it's only been since April. But, you know, it's a week in, week out thing. There's some weeks where I just really don't want to do it, but I know I have to be consistent. And it's taken its toll, and I don't know. I want to still do it, but I think I kind of need a break. So I'm kind of working on that, and I know I need to allow myself to take that break. I can't force myself to just keep pushing through and doing everything. For who? It's the same thing with SF, you know? For who? Who am I trying to prove myself to? Is it to prove myself to me? Or is it to prove myself to everybody there that's listening, that has these expectations of who I am, and I want to reach those expectations and exceed them? You know? And I think I'm doing it for the latter. I don't think I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because I want, you know, I want to impress everybody else, and that's not the right reason to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to impress people. I don't need to try to be in, you know, I don't need to try to fucking do anything for anybody else other than myself. And that's why I'm going to Sweden in January, because I realized that I need to do something for me. This is what that podcast was supposed to be about. This is what the podcast was supposed to be about, but it kind of transformed into about kind of everybody else, which is what I like to do. I like to make people happy and everything, but you can only do it for so long until you yourself become drained of it. And it's becoming a little draining. It's taking time away from my music. So I don't know. I'm thinking in December, season 1 will conclude of the podcast. And we'll see when it picks back up. But I will be going to Sweden. And I'm going to be there from January to May. And speaking of soul searching, I feel like I'm going to do a lot of that over there. You know, being in a new place, a new environment that nobody knows your name, you know, is going to be a very, very eye-opening experience. Different culture, different continent. Nobody I know around me. Absolutely nobody. You know, like in SF, I had family in San Jose. I had family in San Bruno. I had some friends around that I knew loosely. But going to the entire other side of the world and just kind of having yourself, pretty nerve-wracking. But I feel like that's what I need to do in order to kind of grow as a person. I've been in the same spot for quite a while. I came back from SF summer of 2016, and now it is almost 2020. So, be about almost 4 years just being here. And I cannot have that happen. I can't have that be a thing. That's just so much time just being in one's place. And, you know, I appreciate everything that I've experienced, the friends that I've been able to make while I've been in Elk Grove and Sacramento, and I've been able to go out more and meet so many more people, and I'm so appreciative. But the world's a big place, and I want to kind of go out and see it. I don't want to wait, because the more I wait, the more time I devote to other things that I really don't want to do. Like, do I really want to get a job, work a 9 to 5, do that whole thing? Not really, no. You know, over summer, before school started, and I was just doing music and the podcast, I was super, like, happy. Just kicking it with friends, working, doing the podcast and music. But then once school got in the way, that's when the podcast started becoming more like of a strain on me. And I think it's really because of school. I've had to put so much more effort into school that I don't really have the energy to do this anymore, or my music. But I've been pushing myself to do the podcast because people actually like listen to it a lot. That it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to give up the energy that I would put into music and put all my excess energy into the podcast. And I haven't really done anything in music because of that. It's just so hard to find the time. So I've had to do a lot of soul searching in that respect. To realize, like, oh my God, like, I might not actually want to do this anymore. It's taken a while for me to realize that. I've had to really think about it. I've had to really, sit myself down and reflect. And I think a lot of people are scared to do that because people are scared of change generally. I mean, there's some people that embrace it, but a lot of people don't. People want to be stuck in their ways. People want to just live one way and never change. And that's it. They don't want to compromise anymore. They don't want to alter anything within their life. They just want to stay the same. And looking inward challenges that. So what do? They don't do that. They don't look inward. They're always looking out. Constantly looking out at everybody else and not worrying about themselves. And at that point, I personally feel like you start dying. I mean, there's a super, super, super nihilistic view and being like, once you're born, you start dying. I mean, yeah, it's true. But I think living is growing. It's like with anything, you know, like when people talk about ancient Rome, when the population of ancient Rome started decreasing and becoming stagnant, there were a lot of issues, a lot of problems that arose within the empire. It started to die slowly, but then eventually it did die and it went away. And I feel like that same sort of thought pattern, fact pattern, whatever, remains true in individuals. If you don't keep learning and you don't self-reflect and you don't change and you're not willing to change and you're not going to actively try to change, then you're going to start to just slowly wither away. You're basically just mailing it in and you're checking out. And it's kind of sad. So anybody out there who hasn't self-reflected in a while, hasn't, seriously thought about their actions and how it will affect their future, how your past mistakes have gotten you where you are now. If you haven't done that in a while, I suggest you do it. It's excuse me. It's very beneficial. You learn a lot about yourself, and to me, without that, it's really hard to grow. And it's also hard to just meet different types of people that way. If you just stay the same for so long, I feel like you lose friends that way because people change. You can't stop other people from changing, and if they see that you're just the same person all the time, eventually those people will outgrow you. The people that have been there for so long. Maybe you'll find other people, you won't be able to maintain consistent friendships or relationships that way. So it's healthy. It's healthy to self-reflect and look at yourself through an objective lens. It's difficult for a lot of people because a lot of people have big egos and, I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say about soul searching. Soul searching is very important. Making informed decisions that will affect the rest of your life. Everybody has to do it. And the more time you allow yourself to reflect, the better off you'll be. So please self-reflect. I think we all kind of need to do that a little bit more in today's society. We're too busy thinking about what other people are doing. Not enough about what we are feeling inside and what we need to do for ourselves. So, the second topic that I was suggested to talk about is just sports in general, which, I could go into anything having to do with sports, but, today the Raiders lost to the Houston Texans. I didn't really watch a whole lot of the game because I was working. However, we are now 3-4. And we are finally coming back to Oakland. We are playing in Oakland for the first time since September. And yeah, it's weird being 3-4. You know, I was really hoping we'd win this game. It would have helped us out a ton in the playoff race, but anything's possible. We play the Lions next, and then the Chargers, and then the Bengals, all at home, all 3 games at home. So if we can come out of this homestand with 3 wins, that would be fucking awesome. Then we go to New York after we play the Bengals and we play the Jets, which could very well be another win, which I really hope it is. So, to me, yes, we went 2 out of 5. We won 2 of 5 in this away stretch, being 5 weeks away. However, the rest of our season, the rest of our season is looking actually not bad. Like you look at that our schedule, and I feel like we have a pretty good chance of actually making playoffs. You know, we play, like I said, the Lions. I feel like that's a good game. We'll be in every game. We don't play a team that is above 500 this entire stretch. The entire rest of the season, we don't play a team above 500 other than the Chiefs, and they're missing Patrick Mahomes. He will be back soon. However, there's a very good chance that, you know, we have a chance to win every game. I mean, like I said, Lions, their defense is a little weird, up and down, not consistent. So is ours. I mean, ours isn't anything amazing, but there's a chance that we could beat the Lions. Pretty good chance we beat the Chargers. The Bengals have not won a game. We most likely are going to keep that streak alive for them. The Jets, they're 1-6. I mean, we are a better team than them. The Chiefs game, okay, we'll lose that game. Then we play the Titans, who are 4-4. Very spotty team. Very up and down. Same with the Jaguars. Very up and down. And then we play the Chargers again in LA. It's a home game for us. And then the Broncos. Shitty team. So we have a really good schedule coming up. And I hope with that we can at least make a push for the playoffs. If we just go, 8-8, I'll be happy. But to go to lose only 2 games the rest of the way, go 9-6, I don't know. I hope it, we can talk about individual players all we want, and Josh Jacobs has been great. Derek Carr's been The defense, we really miss Jonathan Abram. We really miss him. I feel like our defense would be a lot better with him on it. Obviously, he's a great player, but we're just really thin in our secondary, and it definitely shows. Has not been as good as we all thought it was going to be. So, I don't know. That's all I have to say about the Raiders. I'm honestly really tired thinking about football or sports in general. However, NBA has started. The season has started. And have I been paying attention? Not really, no. But I just know that my Celtics have been looking not too bad. We beat Toronto. We beat New York. Okay. And I know we played the 76ers and we lost to them. But the 76ers are a really good team. They're probably going to be in the finals in the East this year. So, I don't really look at that loss as anything indicative of the overall Celtics, potential. I think they have a really high ceiling this year. Probably a good 3rd seed, 4th seed type of team. Anything over that, I don't see it, but yeah, I mean, pretty good. The Suns have been looking very interesting. So have the Mavericks. I really like both those teams. The Kings have been looking horrible. Straight trash. I don't know what Luke Walton's thinking, putting out these lineups that make no sense. But we shall see. We shall see what happens. Hockey's back too. Cool. I guess. I don't fucking know. I like the Sharks, and I hope they do good. That's all I can really say about that. And then with baseball, the Nationals are shitting themselves on the national stage, and the Astros are loving it because it looks like they're going to win the World Series. They need one more win, which will be on Tuesday. They will most likely get it in Houston unless the Nationals take that game. Then it will go to a Game 7. But for now, it looks as though the Astros are going to win this thing. The pitching for the Nationals has totally just crumbled before our eyes. It's just become so bad. I don't know what happened. They really need Matt Scherzer, and he just can't do anything. So he's injured. What can you do? But yeah, so that's sports talk, I guess. I don't fucking know. If you've been listening to the podcast to this point, thank you very much. I think I'm going to kind of cut it pretty short today. But before I leave, I just want to let everybody know that I have 2 shows coming up under my stage name Downer in Sacramento. I have a show at the Holy Diver on Thursday the 14th. It's a $5 pop-up show. I'm not sure as to who else will be playing that show. If once I receive that information, I will definitely send it everyone's way so you guys can show up and watch me perform if you would like to. I also will be playing at 916 Fest, which will take place at the Colony on Sunday the 17th. I'll be playing alongside many awesome fucking bands, a lot of whom I cannot really mention who, but I will be playing there. So then if you want to come to that too, let me know. It will be at the Colony, which is on Stockton Boulevard, close to 14th and Stockton Boulevard in Sacramento. And yeah, a lot of interesting things happening with music. I'm trying to record more stuff, so stay tuned if you are wanting to hear more of that type of thing. But yeah, I think right now we're going to cut it a little short for this one. I just wanted to give you guys something. I will be back on Closing Out the Week with a guest. We shall see who it is. But for now, I will bid you all an adieu. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on Friday for Closing Out the Week. Take care now.